Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I'm Giovanni, former high stakes professional with 8 years of experience, and now I'm helping players crush low and mid stakes. Today I'm going to review the play of one of my students, and I will give you plenty of tips and exploits that you can directly implement into your own game so you make sure to crush low stakes in 2026. So let's jump into the footage. He's playing NL50, Russian cash. Here we directly have the first spot versus recreational, and first tip that you should expand your defending ranges versus recreationals. That's something that I see a lot of players doing wrong. And here, for example, if my student would have 9-6 offsuit, most players would just fold, and versus 2x, you can defend this versus the recreational. So this would be kind of the threshold. If villain would open 2.5, I would still call like 9-7, 9-8 offsuit. Of course, it's also dependent on how deep you are with the recreational. So less money the recreational has, more you tighten up again. But in general, just expand your defending ranges. Records. Okay. I have the footage also on 1.5 speed. Okay, here we have nines. We have nines and we have the possibility to 4-bet. In theory, this will be a fine fold, but exploitive, I like the 4-bet because the population is perceived very nitty here. They under 4-bet. So a big tip here is to think how the population is perceived in a certain spot and kind of take it to your advantage. So if the population is perceived as tight and nitty here, I want to expand my code 4-bet strategy and be more aggressive. Of course, if like the button would have like a 15 VPIP, then I don't do it. But versus the average player, I think here you can expand and 4-bet nines. They will react more passive automatically and overfold a bit. Also, the nice thing is then that you have bluffs on certain runouts post flop. So, for example, the board comes ace, king, 3, then you actually have still bluffs on this runouts, and then nines becomes a very nice hand to bluff with. So you over realize post flop also with this hand in this way, or when the board comes like 9-8-7, so a pretty bad board for you, you still have like this type of hands that have then a lot of value. So you have implied odds when he hits, and you have like a nice bluffing hand when your range does very well on that texture, let's say. So that's also a great way of thinking about your preflop ranges. To think kind of also for the ahead and think the through the post flop scenarios, let's say, and how your hand will perform in different lines on different textures. Okay, call the fives. We face a 1/3 versus 1/3. I think we already fold the low pockets here. If you would bet 1/4, it gets closer. And some players even bet just one blind, then it would be a call or maybe some frequency check raise, whereas 1/3 just fold. Here important it is again this like thinking ahead and just thinking if you have a threshold hand, this one versus 1/3 it's already just a fold. But if he bets 1/4, it gets pretty close. And then I would think then about future about the future, kind of like on turns and rivers, which type of mistakes is villain doing, and do I see some future potential to over realize my equity? So, for example, if villain is under barreling the turn, and I get then often the opportunity to bluff the river, for example, turn my hand into a bluff and steal the pot, then this would lead me to over realize a bit the equity, and then I can call the hand more often on the flop. Or if villain is over folding to the check raise, then we move it a bit more in the check raise. Depending on that, you can then shift the threshold hands to a specific line, let's say. But here it would be just a fold. So the tip here is just to know your thresholds. So study well your thresholds versus the different sizings. And then when you know the thresholds, think ahead and do not think in isolation. So street by street in isolation, see the whole picture, how everything is connected, and how the future streets also affect your decision pre-flop, flop. So we adjust accordingly to this. And yeah, we just call here to wide versus the button when the ranges are wider. Then actually I don't mind expanding my calls here, because population has then of course a wider range, and then he needs to find more unnatural bluffs on the turn, which they normally miss. So they under barrel a bit on the turn, especially in low stakes. They play too nitty there on the turn, and that makes me to float in a bit more often or check raise a bit more aggressive. Okay. Yeah, here we need to open. Queen jack offsuit, it's a clear open. In theory, already 100% open, especially in low stakes here. In this Russian case games, you want to expand a bit your open raise frequency, so like how wide you open raise, because they just overfold. They play too passive, and yeah, just a clear open. Also, queen 10 offsuit would be close, but I would open here always because, like I said, they overfold. And then dependent queen 10 offsuit you make dependent on the table. So when it's getting close, you look, okay, which type of players. I look mostly just on the VPIPs, and therefore then I adjust my preflop ranges. So this is also a tip: do not play strict preflop ranges. Play them like adjust them accordingly to the table that you're in. So really get in the habit of marking the players, especially for preflop tendencies, that you can quickly see what type of players are on your table, and if you should open wider or tighten up a bit. Here we call the fives, which I like because we have here two recreationals, so that's great that he gets here involved with them. Flop, then just fold. And if it would get if the cutoff would check to us, then we need to turn our hand into a bluff versus the capped range. And the big blind usually is also pretty weak here on that board, so you bet flop and put pressure on turns and rivers depending on how many callers and the run out. And here versus recreational, we have I think we checked the flop. So you have two options here. Either you range like you not range bet, but you bet your bluffs. Let's say when you have a bluff, you bet small the flop, medium the turn, so around 50%, and then river you size up to like 75 to 100%. That's a great auto profit line with your bluffs. And alternative, you have also the option to check back the flop and get additional information from villain, from the recreational on the turn. So depending on his sizing on the turn, you will see then his hand strength. Recreational play their hand a lot. So when he bets here half pot or smaller, we want to go into aggressive mode, and we want to attack his weak range by raising the turn step and attacking also on the river with big bets. So betting then also pick the river in case he calls the turn. If he bets big, then we just play our hand. So checks back. Okay, and here we see the very fast half pot. It's on the weak side, so I would like to see my student here raising and applying pressure on the capped range. Okay, so and the things about it. Let's see. Okay, so he seems to think about it, and he's unsure. So this is something that I recognize, and I like that he goes passive if he's unsure. So this is also a recommendation that you go in spots where you're unsure, you go on the passive side. So you just mark the hand, and where you was unsure, and after the session you will just review it and see what was the right action. And next time when you have more confidence, when the confidence is high enough, you just follow through the race, let's say. For sure you know this feeling when you make like a play where you're unsure, a call down or a bluff, and then it's you cannot really let go of it. it's stuck in your head and you think why I did this, blah blah blah. So it's taking away energy and lowering your confidence, and it has a very negative effect on the future hands. So this is something also to think about. This a lot of players they don't really think about this factor, how the decision affects also your mental state and your future performance then in future hands. Where's the half pot on the river? Usually the recreational, when they bet again half pot or smaller, is on the river. It's on the weaker side, but here it's a pretty specific run out. It's I'm not really sure here. Does he bet here jack or not? So it doesn't seem too weak, let's say. So I don't mind just folding here. Oh, yeah, I would like the turn raise there and attacking him on the river then. Here we want to four bet. It seems like so in theory this will be a close end. So any option will be in theory fine. Fold, call, or raise, or four bet. And in practice, I would like here overfold because MP is just way too nitty in low stakes. They miss hands like low pocket pairs, low like the slow pseudo connectors, like 7-6, 6-5 type hands, Jack 10 suited. It's very easy to under 3 bet here. So the reaction would be then to under 4 bet. Okay, we go for the 4 bet. I don't like it. So there I would need to work with my student on like improving his ability to exploit pre-flop better. So like to play more exploitive ranges. And now we're on the flop. As played, I recommend simplification. My approach is to simplify, if possible. If the EV loss is not too big, I want to simplify to a range bet or range check. And then in time, you can slowly implement more mixed strategies, but only if you really studied them and if you have a good idea of what you're doing. I really don't like mixing everywhere, and just because you saw it in the solver, you will end up having a very messed up range. And it will be hard for you to defend it correctly. Whereas turn steps, you will have a too weak checking range, a too strong betting range mostly. So implement it slowly, step by step, and keep it simple. You can crush the stakes with simple strategies. Also, it frees up energy and focus that you can put on the villain. So you have more energy left to really focus on villains, timing tells, sizing tells. There's a great benefit of playing like more simple strategies. So he goes for the range bet, small range bet, which I like. On the turn, we check. In theory, it will bet probably sometimes. Um, Exploitive, they will end up having here a too strong range. So I like the fact that he picks up on that. That villain's range is now pretty strong. Not sure if it's really his thought process or if he just was lost in his own range. Um, there, I would need to talk a bit more with the student to listen to his thought process, and then I can help him there more in depth, let's say. After checking the turn, river probably will be again like a mix. I don't think we get to check 100%. Um, the problem here again is villain's range is still very strong, and now even nines gets there, which is pretty common now in his range when he checks back the turn. And we block tens, which is also a very common fold on the river now. So it gets very ugly already. I think exploitive I would like again to give up because the range is just too strong of villain. Yeah, he ran out of time, but I think he already noticed somehow on the turn and river that he's in a pretty ugly spot. And if you think back, we bring ourselves into the spot by four betting, making a bad four bet on the pre-flop. So playing correctly pre-flop will avoid you being in this type of situations and making potentially like big mistakes. So for him, like if he would now start to just go all in here on the river and you just bluff his hand, I think that would be a pretty big mistake. And versus range, villain's range. And then yeah, it's kind of snowballs again. Like you make a mistake pre-flop, and then it can eventually lead to a very big mistakes, especially when you in a four bet spot. You can make a big mistake. So yeah, be careful there. I like that he realizes on the turn and river that villain's range is too strong. But the mistake already happened pre-flop. Okay. Yeah, and this is also a mistake here. That's a tip also for you guys is that deeper you get, more you want to move away from ace queen offsuit type hands and move your frequencies more into hands that have more playability. So you want to four bet hands more like ace four suited. You move them into this area like ace 10 suited, king 10 suited. This type of hands will perform better in the four bet. So you will see also the solver shifting towards the hands. So I don't like the combo choice here so deep, and I don't like the sizing should be a bit bigger, so like 22, so or even 23. We are pretty deep. Okay, as played. Now it changes a bit when we are deep. So this board is quite good still for us, of course. The thing is, I think in theory it's sizing up a bit to like 40%, and then you can still range, um, but yeah, it's you just need to think. Okay, my aces and kings, what they want to mostly do here. How do we want to size? And I think here we want to go a bit bigger, like 40%, but it's fine. Okay, we go small. Turn is then important to. I also one thing is like with the 25% when he's in position, you can also think in a way of like what does he need to fold versus the 25% range bet. And deeper he gets, like more and more he is capable of floating and taking advantage of the position, the positional advantage. So you kind of want to size up to not give him such a easy way, let's say, to realize his equity. So yeah, I really like sizing up there on the flop to like 40% when we are deeper. And turn, it's a good barrel. So like I like that he's barreling on the turn here. Villain will start to react, yeah, more on the nitty side. So like population will overfold here versus the turn barrel. And now we are versus the MP, not the versus the cutoff, not the MP. So the ranges are a bit wider. We are deep, so villain will also defend versus the four bet wider. So I think a very important barrel then on the turn. So good. We block queens, we block aces. Yeah, I like it. Here ace 10 offsuit. Yeah, like usually I think it's a good open here. Russian cash. Yeah, he seems to be a bit too nitty from the early positions. Three betting jack 9 suited. That's good. Here also a tip: you want to be very aggressive, especially like with three bets, especially big blind button and big blind small blind. There I also ran my own exploit like solutions where I put in the population reaction versus a three bet, and then yeah, like the result is pretty crazy. So you can end up betting very aggressively, like around even 25% or something blind versus blind, and versus button even more. Not saying that you should go totally crazy. Um, I recommend just taking the hands that you already three bet for some frequency. You go up in frequency like 25, 50%. Like this, you exploit well your pool and you don't make it too obvious, let's say. And you also don't get lost in post flop. Because if you start now three betting a 30% range, yeah, you will end up having like way too many combos, let's say, or post flop, and being constantly lost post flop. This we also don't want. So you kind of want to have a balance. You still want to have like a okay range to maneuver then post flop. I'm not totally sure if I already mentioned it now, but yeah, like marking the players is very important. Um, so here, for example, we see the 54 VPIP guy, 250 big blinds deep. So we have here 200. We are 200 big blinds deep with him. We really don't want to miss any opportunity to be involved with him in a pot. So just marking him, even if I'm not, I just see him on the table, I directly mark him, and I know, okay, this is one of the major sources of EV in my current session. So I kind of want to target him, let's say. So I really don't want to miss, for example, you're on the button and you have like a pocket deuces, the UTG is opening, and you just fold, and you totally miss that this guy was sitting in the big blind. That you really don't want to miss these opportunities. Here it's interesting. If my student would be 200 big blinds deep here on this table, and the small blind would call, then I would even call a 3x open here with 7-5 suited offsuit. Just the fact that he's involved with 200 big blinds deep, I want to again expand my defense pretty heavily. Here, multi-way, yeah, yeah, it's fine. The spot is still very good for us, so it's fine to simplify to a small bet. Range bet, usually also the big blind and the small blind will not check raise aggressive enough against this. They will overfold. So I like this. You just, in general, you need to be a bit more careful with the range bets. Um, and often you will see then also the solver using more often the range check as the better option. Versus the check raise, heads up. If it would be heads up and we would be deeper, then it would be a totally fine hand to float. I would like to float this hand with the backdoors and attack a villain on future streets. So, for example, population is over check folding on the turn, so you can you have a very profitable step on the turn with this type of hand, and as soon he checks to you. So again, additional EV that plays in, or like that increases the equity realization again, or the EV of my hand, the float, let's say. So again, thinking about these things makes you then to be able to adjust your plays better. Let's say you're a better exploitive player then. But multi-way in this scenario, it's totally fine to fold, and then it's a clear fold. Here, King 10 offsuit. I would look at my table, but this table seems, you see, like 26, 26. Yeah, these two guys seem on the tighter nittier side. So really make sure to mark these players and that you then adjust well. Here it's fine to fold. But ace check suited. Fold call from the recreational. Here on 835 two tone, the solver will check a lot. And also, like, one tip is to use like smaller open raise sizings from the small blind, because population is still playing pretty poorly versus it. They overfold. They usually, yeah, not under 3-bet, because you should usually 3-bet not that much, but mostly overfolding. So implement a bit smaller open raise sizings. And also on the flop, you can mostly just range bet, because they will overfold versus the small bet. So you can just put in a min bet, and they will usually overfold and under raise versus this bet, especially with a wider range. And it plays more easier, let's say, than check raising, developing check raising strategy. You can do this, but then really study it and again have a plan what you're doing. So I teach my student there how to create a good check raise strategy, or like in general how to create good strategies. It's like a big focus in my coaching with him, that I show him to how to study well, how to develop strategies, solid strategies, and how to implement them into your game. Here, delay c-bet sizing is it's fine. Yeah, usually we want to use a lot of big bets. The thing here is just that we want to also probably bet our tens and nines still. So with this in mind, I think going like pot size, I think makes sense when we include this type of hands, some 8x. Um, Depending on how polarized you want to be on the turn, you choose the new sizing. Depending on the value range or like value hands that you want to still value bet. Here he opened 2x. I would here, if I see the 40 VPIP guy, I want to look at how many hands. So if I see like 50 hands and he has 40 VPIP, then it's pretty clear for me that he's a recreational. And then I want to open big. So I want to open 3x. There's also a big tip here is to adjust your preflop sizing when there's fish involved, because when we open 3x, we give the big blind, so the regular, a worse price to get into the situation. So he cannot call then something like 7-6 offsuit or yeah, this type of hands. He's less likely, let's say, to call. And we are more often than heads up with the recreational, and we have on average a bigger pot with the recreational. So many factors that make me to open raise bigger. Also, if you let the regular to come in so cheap, he can. So first of all, your equity realization is lower multi-way. It's harder to extract the value from the fish. But also the regular will have the opportunity to make a hand and stack the recreational. So and that hurts us a lot um, if if we make this present to our villain, let's say. So really get into the habit of thinking a bit more deeper about the different factors that play into your decision. That's a big tip. For that, I recommend also to go away from rakeback grind. So don't force yourself to play 4 tables of Russian cash, because you have a very low time bank and you just don't have the time to pick up on all the information. So you will end up falling into the autopilot, into a pretty weak autopilot all the time, and playing without you really thinking about the things. And in this way, you improve much slower than when you have more time to really pick up on everything. So that's a big tip, to not play too much volume. So 2 to 3 tables is fine, depending on your experience. Let's say you really just need to see how many of the timing tells, sizing tells can you catch, and also you will give yourself, like you yourself will give away plenty of timing tells, sizing tells when you don't have time to think and to act. That's a big thing. In the short run, you will. So here, wait, one thing here I need to say. I don't like too much the turn step because he's short, and he's lucky that he raises just small. But imagine he's jamming no all in. It really sucks. So I think here we got a bit too greedy, and we should just check. I'm just thinking maybe there's like even the potential of betting big. That's also yeah, that I would even like more because when we bet big, we actually can get let's say something like Jack 10 will still call, something like Queen 10 in the recreational shoes, but he's pretty tight. So tens will call, so we actually get some value, and we can fold out some hands from the other player, something like what is beating us, like Queen 10 or Ace Queen. I think he will start to fold there. There's a big bet, so that would be probably the better option. And then also when the recreational jams, then yeah, we can just call it off. But I really don't like the small bet. So check or big bet. Big bet would be a, yeah, you really need to think about what you get to fold, from what you get called by, if it really makes sense. So the better option, just if you're unsure, just check. If he would be 100 big blinds deep, the recreational, then it's totally fine to bet. Because yeah, it's pretty hard for him then to just check raise all in when the SPR is quite big, and you build a pot in case you hit something, like you hit your flush. So that I don't mind the bet. Just because he's short, I don't like it. I think I was saying something before and I didn't finish my thought, and now I forgot about it. But yeah, let's do maybe like a few more minutes, and then let's do this as a last hand. I think already plenty of information, and next time in the next video I will continue. Mm, okay. Range bet. So yeah, I like that he's starting to simplify again. So he came to me like mixing everywhere. So the first thing that we do is like to simplify, keep it simple, build a solid foundation, and then slowly implement the mixes. That would be one of the first boards where we start implementing mixes, because the EV loss is on the higher side, um, but still fine, including the mistakes that villain is doing, like overfolding, under check raising. So yeah, the tip here is just keep it simple, and then in time you implement the mixed strategies. Or also a good example would be 9, 6, 3, something like this mid low type boards where uh, the solver really likes to go like big and like mix with a big bet, and we usually lose quite a lot of EV when we go small. So that would be the first board where I start mixing in the single race pot. But then again, like I'm teaching him how to create a solid strategy, and then he's implementing it slowly. Um, and let's just talk about this, and then we stop. First, the 3-bet. I think he's a bit unsure still because he just implemented the 2x open raise on in the small blind, the smaller sizings, how to defend correctly versus the 3-bet. The low pockets, usually they defend quite frequent here. So yeah, I need to talk here with him about the defending thresholds. And yeah, just to make sure that he's not overfolding. But again, when you're unsure, overfolding a bit out of position is not bad, because again, you're out of position. It's harder for you to play this type of hands correctly post flop, so you under realize your equity. Therefore, pre flop you can tighten up till you really studied it. That's it for this video. Thank you for watching. If you want to make sure to crush low stakes in 2026, watch this video next.